Hi, Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert. And what I wanted to do is tell you about the favorite time of the week. In particular, the guest I had is someone I had so much fun talking to ahead of time. I'm excited about welcoming Michele Molitor. Michelle, did I get your name right?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Good. And
Thanks for having me on the show, Mitchell.
I'm hearing an echo, Brian, if there's a way to fix that. And Michelle, hi. You are an amazing human. I love talking to you. Who are you?
So, thanks for having me here, Mitchell. I'm very excited to have a chat with you today. I'm Michele Molitor, CEO and founder of Nectar Consulting. I've been a coach and hypnotherapist, for 23 years, 22 years now, a hot minute. And my mission in life is to help create greater acceptance, belonging, and connection with dignity in the world. So, whether that's with yourself or with others, learning how to communicate internally, mastering your own mindset, and learning how to communicate externally with the people in your life, in your work, so that everyone feels seen and heard and accepted for the amazing gifts that they bring to the world.
Hmm. Yeah, now I'm feeling really silly because the user error was on my side. So is my echo. That's because I wanted to hear you twice. Um,
Excellent.
Tell me about you. What? Give me another side of you. Tell me about the personal life. Who? What's a more robust you?
Sure. So I live here in the San Francisco Bay Area. I've been here almost 24 years now, so I guess you can call me a California native, I suppose. Originally from the East Coast. I am a lover of animals, of books, of nature. I geek out on reading things about neuroscience and how people think and work and tick, and what gets in our way. And um, I stumbled my way into this passion and purpose of mine from my former career. I was a creative director in web development and high tech, graphic designer, artist in my spare time. And I got bullied out of my career and by two gentlemen that I hired for my team, and it was pretty devastating to my confidence. And it ultimately created a massive case of imposter syndrome for me. And but the silver lining was that it led me to my life's work as a coach. The universe has a funny way of getting our attention, right? So shove me off the .com bus, like, no, look over here, check this thing out called coaching. And it was in its very early stages as an industry back in 2000. And it really made my heart sing, and I knew instantly that it was the thing that I needed to be doing. So I pivoted my career and changed gears, and I've been doing it ever since with joy and tenacity and a lot of resilience, I think.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that you were bullied out. That's such a. I'm never excited when that happens, when partnerships go awry. It's never fun. Now that you have learned and you're actually coaching, because you now, I'm sure you've run across this situation with your clients.
Oh yeah,
Um,
all the time.
were there signs you should have seen?
Oh gosh, yes, and I was in a new job in a new city. I didn't know very many people, and I was paddling like hell under the water to give this my best shot. And um, being the people pleaser that I am, right? It was me trying to make sure that everyone was taken care of. I called my team my duckies, right? I'd take care of all of my duckies, and these two particular duckies didn't like my management style. Whatever, who knows? But ultimately, it led to, um, me losing confidence in myself, which ultimately led to me getting let go. And um, it was a huge learning lesson on many, many levels, but it jump started a whole new version of my life around personal and professional development and helping other people do that. Um, as I, initially started just to heal myself and then realized, oh, this thing called coaching is really my life's work. So, um, I've been trained and certified in a variety of modalities that I integrate together in my work with clients that I call rapid rewiring, because we work both at a conscious level and a subconscious level for whole brain transformation, right? So um, I know you know, in our previous conversation, I think you nailed it when you said it's advanced mindset training. And that's exactly what it is, because really helping people step into their values of who they are, right? I refer to them as dignity traits. What are your core dignity traits of how you want to be seen, how you want to feel, how you want to be respected and treated by others? And when you're clear on those core values within yourself, then it's much easier to stand up confidently for who you are, what you bring to the table, and how you want to move through the world with greater ease and joy.
Yeah, and it was so funny because you had mentioned, speaking of the word dignity, you had mentioned that you were officially trained in one of our mutual friends' system, um, focused on dignity, and this one's called Dignify. And
Correct.
talk about that and how you've integrated that into your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I believe, things are always divinely guided for us, right? And meeting Joe Kittinger um, this time last year, uh, he is the founder of Profit Co. and the inventor of Dignify, which is an algorithm that helps identify a person's top 5 dignity traits. It identifies their do's and don'ts. How do you want to be treated? How don't you want to be treated? And it seems so simple, but yet, as a learning junkie of all the assessments of all the different things that I've taken, right? Um, I've never been asked that question before. Well, how do you want to be treated? Well, gosh, that's a great question. It was like the first time my very first coach asked me, well, what are your core values? I was like, I don't know. That's a great question. I'd never thought about that. And this dignify.com is probably the closest thing I found to a values assessment. It's actually a survey, it's a patented survey that identifies the things that are most important to you and who you authentically are, right? But more importantly, it's a tool that enables people to communicate with each other with greater respect by simply getting to know them at this other level. So it literally is a platform that tells you what to ask the other person. So it takes some of the uncomfortable out of conversations with colleagues or coworkers, right? Um, and does it in a respectful way that enables everyone to really see into the other person with greater clarity for who they authentically are, and then to bring that out by reflecting it back to them so they can show up more fully.
It's always interesting when we have a system or a process that allows us to see ourselves and through that be able to see others in a positive way.
Mhm.
And that, so what Dignify does for you and you help deploy at companies, by the way, is it easy to deploy, or actually nothing's easy? Is it simple to deploy?
It is very simple. I use it both individual with individuals and with organizations, right? My one-to-one clients that I work with, it helps them see themselves. But it also gives me clues into how to speak into their listening, so they always feel safe. They always feel seen and heard. At an organizational level, you know, whether it's a team or a whole organization is invited to take it. It takes like 10 minutes. It's very simple, and the whole idea is transparency, of seeing how other people want to be treated, what's really important to them, what are their core motivators, their emotional motivators, and then how to bring that out, um, the best in people as you do that. And I train people on how to utilize this tool, and it's not a one and done, um, like some other assessments are. This actually isn't an assessment, it's an ongoing communication tool that gets used on the monthly, right? Regularly with team members, so that you understand where you're coming from. And what that does, it lowers the assumptions that are made, because in the absence of information, our brains want to fill in with stuff, right? We make up stuff. Oh, Mitchell must be mad at me because he was late for the call, right? No, it has nothing to do with that. There was this or that that got in the way. And so as the assumptions go down, the communications go up, and the collaboration expands, and then productivity expands, and then ultimately bottom line success happens. So it creates a really beautiful ripple effect for organizations, and it's used all over the world.
Sweet. All right, we're going to go back to you, but thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, so we you had this imposter syndrome thing after being bullied way back when, 24 years ago ish, and you started. I assume you started getting coaching first. Was it your first coach or your second? Like, who was the one? When did you actually go, "Oh my God, this is for me"? And what happened? Do you remember the scenario?
Um, yeah. Well, before I left my position, I had a friend of mine at work who's like, "Hey, come to this thing." I was like, "Okay." Like, I didn't know anybody. I was new to town, and it was an organization called Landmark Education that you may be familiar with. And so
Yeah,
I
of
was
course.
invited to a friend's graduation from the forum. And I walked into this room, and there was like 300 people all smiling and laughing. I'm like, I'll have whatever they're having, right? Because I'm not having that at the moment. And I'd really like to have some more happiness in my life. And so I took that first course and created the possibility of being happy, because I was very not at that moment in time. And a week later, I found out I might get laid off. I was like, oh, that was fast. Like, it was the first realization of how powerful of a manifester we can be when we really sit in our words, right? And
Mm,
after getting laid off, a few weeks later, um, I my uncle, who's a Silicon Valley veteran, he's like, "There's this thing called career coaches now. You should get one of those." I'm like, "Okay, great. Where do I find one?" So through the magic of the Google machine, I found my first coach, and it was in the process of being coached, and they asked me, "What are my core values?" And I was like, "That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that. I don't even know. Let me think about that." And that was a really kind of aha moment of, oh, right? I've been living by the seat of my pants, kind of like showing up and kind of going where I was pointed, but it wasn't a conscious thing. And in that moment, I realized, oh, this was the way to create conscious choice in my life, to really choose what was really important to me and then actively seek that out versus, oh, this is nice, this happened to show up, right? Or this happened to show up. So um it really was a visceral kind of whole body sensation, where it felt like all the cells in my body came into alignment, and my spirit was like, yes, this now. It's like, oh, okay. got it. And went on to get trained and certified as a coach, and then started my company in 2001, because that felt less daunting than handing my resume to anybody at that point. It
Fascinating.
really did.
So the first coach was a career coach,
Yeah.
and who was your second coach? That was the second coach after or before you started the new company?
Um, the first and second coach were before I started my company.
So let's go to the second coach. What did you learn? What aha moment? Well, so that first aha moment, or what are your core values?
Mhm.
It's like, oh, this is something I should know. Got that? Okay. And by the way, I often do the see the pan stuff, or I live for tomorrow versus today. I understand those worlds. What about your second coach? What happened there?
It was a long time ago.
Oh, I know, I
um,
know. We're going to tie it into
right?
today because just so, if you're listening, I'll make sure I actually tie it together. But I'm hearing so many threads between then and now, which is why I thought it would
Yeah.
be a lot to bring up.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of ahas. Simultaneously, I did like a full year of work with Landmark, right? I did a whole assortment of classes. So there's all sorts of things that were, bubbling up. It was a very intense time of personal growth and development, which I had never done. I had never experienced any of that kind of work prior to 2000. So 30 something years of my life, I was just kind of going along until I felt like I got smacked up against a brick wall. I'm like, no, not that. Look over here. Let's do something else. And and so it was a very fascinating time of stretching and learning and getting really uncomfortable. And that after getting laid off from that position, a few months later, I went to work for another startup, right? Oh, we have 100 million in private funding coming. It's going to be really great. And 6 months later, I got laid off again because they ran out of money. The funding from Europe didn't come because, the dot-com thing was crashing. And this time I got shortchanged a bunch of salary, which made it even more painful. Like the universe is like,
Mm.
I told you. And then a month later, 9/11 happened. So it really felt like someone was shaking me by the shoulders, like, no, not that. No, look over here. This is where you're supposed to be. And so I really took note of that. And so that's when I started my company in the end of 2001. So.
So, why do you think when you work with clients when they come to you? First question: what percentage of the clients that come your way have had personal development training before?
I would say a significant portion of them have had some level of personal development. Not all of them. Um, the folks who tend to show up for me are like, I've tried these other things, they haven't worked, and I'm still dealing with this level of anxiety, this fear, this self-doubt, this lack of confidence that's manifesting as these physical challenges in my body. Please help me. So they've often tried other things. Um, and so that's probably why my clients have
Mm.
dubbed me the mind detective, because of my kind of uncanny ability to get at the root causes of things, to eliminate those fears, the anxiety, and even help them change their physiology in a good way to heal their bodies. So it's really fun stuff.
That's amazing. And I do like you and I spoke, and what was one of the things that popped in my mind was the playground you play in. So those who have been following my work, that CPOP, that customer point of possibilities, and it's for you successful business professionals who think they are not enough. how do they find you? What is it? And when they come to you originally, what does that first conversation look like, or sound like, or feel like?
Sure. Well, I do a lot of networking. I do a lot of speaking. I write. I'm on podcast interviews all the time. So people find me from this, that, and the other way. Um, and I'm always happy to have a complimentary and confidential conversation with someone to find out what is it that they're challenged with at the moment. What have they tried to do to remedy the situation? What is it that they really, really want? Right. So, for example, I had a client come to me like, I really want to grow my business. Every time I get to this level, I get stuck and then I self sabotage and then my numbers drop. And then, oh, yeah, and I have this terrible case of IBS, inflammatory bowel syndrome. I was like, oh, well, let's look at that. And in the process of doing some work with her, not only was she able to reset her mindset, right, to shift her thinking, but we got at the root causes that were deeply embedded in her subconscious mind. So much so that when she got to that almost next level of success, her body went into a fear response, which is what created the IBS. And in the process of connecting those dots together, we turned it off. So after 15 years of suffering from IBS, it stopped. And so her
Wow,
business success went up, her body felt a lot better, and she had more energy and more joy to pour into the work that she does in the world.
pretty crazy, right? Like
Pretty
you
joyful, if you
you
ask
hear
me.
this. I'm gonna say you hear this, right? And if this is not something you're familiar with seeing or watching, you're like, yeah, that's not possible. But we know it is.
Yes, we do. I've done this with so many clients over the years. Um, I have another client, super high anxiety to the point where she was almost housebound. Like she was afraid to go out of the house unless she was with her husband. Um, because her nervousness would then create, again, it was another case of IBS. And so she stopped trusting her body. And we went deep into the subconscious on this to look at, well, what was causing this, and it went all the way back to when she was in high school and she was the star basketball player and her dad happened to be the basketball coach, and no matter how well she played, he would still berate her on the way home. And so her efforts to try and please him, to have him approve of her, created a very high levels of anxiety, high levels of people pleasing, nervous anxiousness that manifested as IBS because he would literally tell her she played like crap. I'm like, look at that. It manifested in your body. And so again, after almost 2 decades of dealing with that, we turned it off. And she came back to me a few years later after she'd had her first child, and she was dealing with postpartum depression, and the anxiety started to come back, and the fear of driving with her daughter in the car. And we did some more rapid rewiring work together, and we dialed down the anxiety such that she found herself just out and about like every other normal mom. And when I touched base with her earlier this year, she and her family had moved to the place that she'd been wanting to do. She had a new job and her online business was thriving, and it's just
Mm.
really beautiful to watch people soar in that way.
You just said it, but I need to ask, how does that make you feel?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's the it's my raison d'être, right? It's the reason I do what I do and I get out of bed, to be able to support people in seeing themselves and letting go of old belief systems that they've perhaps been carrying around since their childhood, right? That they don't even know is in there. I lovingly refer to it as the junk in your trunk, right? You got to let go of the junk in your trunk so you can feel lighter and brighter. and be more resilient. And then as you do that, your energy expands, and then you start attracting to you more of the positive things that you want in your life. And then it becomes an upward spiral of goodness versus a downward spiral down into the pit of despair.
Mm. So, as I'm listening to you, I'm feeling the fact that you're coachable still today, even after all this coaching, you're still coachable. And I had that in our previous conversation in here. I'm feeling that you're a servant leader. You absolutely have the intent and commitment to do the right thing. You're doing what you love doing, which is, by the way, if you're not doing what you love doing, it is worth trying to find what you love doing that you could make a life out of. Um,
Especially before the universe throws you into a wall to get your attention. It's never fun to do it that way. So start
and
the
you had a
exploration
you had a
now.
lot of walls and you were open to receive other people's thoughts, and then you also are spreading cred dust. You've got a lot of the elements of credibility in terms of who you are and how you show up. I got two more questions, and I want to make sure um, that people stick around for the second one because it's the coolest question. But the first one is those that are interested in you and wanting to learn more. How best should they reach out to you?
Sure, they can always find me at michelemolitor.com. I have a variety of free ebooks and things, if people are curious to check out what I've done. And if you're curious to stick your toe in the pool, I have a wonderful online community called How to Become Unshakable. That gives you a lot of great tools to help you start your journey of overcoming self doubt and fear and really stepping into your confidence and your value and worth.
Awesome. Thank you. And so for the last, it's never good for someone like me to say the last question, but I'll say it for the last question. Is there a question I should have asked you, or based on this conversation, is there something you'd like to share or question I should ask so you can answer it?
Ask me why acceptance, belonging, and connection is so important these days.
Ooh, acceptance, belonging, and connection. Actually, this. It's sort of like Douglas Adams' book. That's the answer to life, universe, and everything. But tell me why acceptance, belonging, and connection is so important today.
Well, have you noticed that there's kind of a mental health crisis happening?
Yes.
There's just a little bit of one. And I was actually just reading earlier today um, about a 2023 report on belonging. 74% of Americans feel they don't belong. 74%. And 64% of people don't feel they belong in the workplace. That's huge.
Wow.
Huge. And what I realized through all my work, Mitchell, is that we all inherently want to feel accepted. We want to belong. We want to feel connection with dignity, right? We all want to be treated with dignity and respect. And when those four elements are missing, it creates violations of our dignity, of who we are. And when that happens, we consciously and mostly unconsciously put up barriers to connection to protect ourselves, right? Your amygdala, your fight, flight, or freeze mechanism in your brain is always trying to protect you to keep you alive and safe and on the planet, right? I call her Amy. Amy's your amygdala. She loves you. She just wants to help you. But it's oftentimes those barriers that Amy puts into place to protect you is what's keeping you from having the peace of mind, the health, the well-being, the success that you actually want. And so I've realized that that's really at the heart of my work, is helping people to create acceptance, belonging, and connection with themselves, to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel heard, so that Amy can relax. We give Amy a new set of instructions so that then folks can connect with others in healthy ways, that supports their good work in the world, their unique gifts, and allows them to shine authentically.
Mm, nicely done. And it took me a second. I just realized it was the ABC, acceptance, belonging, connection. So thank
Yes.
you.
Yep.
Like, yeah,
The
there's a pattern
ABC.
here.
It's funny how that works, but it is. I know.
Yeah.
I had the same ha moment. I'm like, oh, it's the ABCs. I love that.
It's so funny. Michelle, you were amazing. Thank you so much for thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, my sincere pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome. And listen, um, if you're excited about, if you happen to be pay attention to a successful business professional, and there's either an imposter syndrome or there's you're not thinking that you're enough. Reaching out to Michelle makes a whole lot of sense. And I'm going to say, if you want the ability to articulate who you are and how you serve in less than 10 words, it then becomes this compass that makes it easy. And we have something, and I'll make sure I put this in the notes. We do once a month, we're doing a clarity session, and it's 90 minutes. And I guarantee you will be able to articulate who you are and how you show up in the world less than 10 words. Less than 10 words. I'm excited to have you there. I'll put that in the show notes. Feel free to join us if you can. In the meantime, the final assignment is to spread some cred dust. If you like what you heard, take a snippet of it and share it. Click on the like button, share with your friends, and we'll see you at the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Thank you so much for everyone. Thank you so much, Michelle, for coming today. And you guys have a great rest of the day and great holiday season.